Today, Metricon, the tip of the property storm iceberg. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Well, at the end of a tragic week in which Melbourne-based building firm Metricon, which is Australia's largest home builder, announced the death of its CEO, Mario Basin, who was 71, the firm insisted repeatedly that it was financially solid. Acting CEO of Metricon, Peter Langfelder, said it was business as usual despite rumours of the company's potential financial collapse. In fact, at a recent press conference, which started quite well, Langfelder dismissed any concerns about the viability of the business. Our business has been very strong for 45 years and will continue for a long, long time to come. Metricon has long-term viability, he told journalists outside a Melbourne building site. We've got a strong history of performance. All our contracts in place are profitable. We're completely up to date with all our trades, our suppliers, our employees, commissions. Everything is completely up to date. We've got an incredibly strong management team. We've got an amazing staff. We've got trades and suppliers who have been loyal with us. But to quote the AFR and to mangle Shakespeare, Langfelder may have protested too much. The obvious question soon arrived. If Metricon is unequivocally trouble-free, then why has the Master Builders Association issued a warning to the entire residential construction sector saying it's facing supply shortages, skill shortages, and input price increases? Langfelder adopted a more realistic tone in response. I'm not saying everything's fine, he said. There are challenges. I know there are labour shortages. There are some delays, and customers do need to be patient with all builders. The industry is going through a pretty tough time, as many industries are, so I'm not skirting around that. There are challenges in the industry, and we're not immune to it. Now, whether Langfelder has put to bed speculation about Metricon's future remains to be seen, but you can be certain that Scott Morrison's going to hope that Metricon's situation does not get any worse before the election tomorrow. Remember, the home building sector employs more than 1 million people. The Metricon mystery has shed fresh light on yet another fragility in Australia's housing sector. At its heart, the pressure on residential construction is a problem of seemingly unstoppable forces meeting apparently immovable objects. Metricon, for example, rapidly expanded in Queensland in an incentive-fuelled turf grab that is now backfiring. They doubled housing starts in Queensland in 2021, leaving it with a stock of fixed-price contracts that crunched it as building material costs surged and labour shortages sent rates sky high. In fact, in the second week of March, in response to questions from the AFR, the privately owned company said it was renegotiating contracts with some customers in Queensland, a move it reversed after the state government said there was no legal basis for clients to pay more, by the way. And unprompted, Mr. Basin answered a question, in fact, the paper haven't even asked. There's been lots of nervous chatter about builder viability, he said. Metricon is in a very strong position to compete all work it has and is continuing to accept and support a high number of new customer builds and will do so for many years to come. The construction industry has suffered a string of collapses, in fact, as fast rising costs and in some cases poor business decisions have put the squeeze on companies operating on margins as low as 1%. The issues Metricon is facing are not dissimilar to everything every single builder and contractor is facing themselves, said Rebecca Kaysen, Chief Executive at industry body Master Builders Victoria. It's this combination of opportunity and challenge that is delivering substantial business-related stress due to supply shortages and ever-increasing costs of building materials. Commercial contractor ABD Group collapsed last year, followed by Sydney-based Next, national contractor ProBuild, and Gold Coast mid-tier Condev. And residential builders were given an extra kick along in 2020 by the federal government's $688 million HomeBuilder scheme, which was designed to prop up an already booming housing industry as the COVID-19 pandemic gripped the country. Metricon made the most of it. Industry figures show that the company nearly doubled its housing starts from 604 to 1,177 in 2021, outstripping the 65% gain across the Sunshine State as a whole. We noticed that we were competing for trades and suppliers with Metricon over the last 12 months more than we had ever had, said Robert Lynch, the executive chairman of ASX-listed builder Tamerwood, which operates in Queensland under the Dixon Homes brand. Home builders that sell dwellings to customers on fixed-price contracts have every incentive to build quickly and to keep materials costs as low as possible. However, the surge in demand for new homes created by home builders' $25,000 incentive payments, along with the crimping of global supply chains as economies around the world kicked back to life from pandemic lockdowns, and the triple whammy of flood-related delays to work across the east coast of Australia, put many builders in the worst possible situation. Queensland-based Privium went under, as did Hobart's Inside Out Construction and Hotondo Homes franchisee Tasmanian Constructions, as well as Melbourne-based boutique builder LP Warren Homes. Industry veteran Mr. Lynch declined to comment directly on rival Metricon, but said any builder expanding in a market where they hadn't previously been a major player had to compete for resources. If you look at the new boy on the block, you may be paying more than existing players, he said. You may be doing it at a higher price to establish yourself, and you add that to expansion in sales in the areas that you're already in. That was definitely happening across the East Coast. At least you've got major problems. Now, Metricon said on Friday that it was viable and profitable and expected to be able to pay all bills when and as they fall due for payment. And Queensland accounted for just 50% of its business, it said. Whilst there have been some problems there, they have now been addressed, it said. In the week following Mr. Bason's death, two Metricon directors, Company Secretary Yvonne Fell and Director Selwyn Ashley Celebro, resigned. The company said they quit their company positions to help the Bason family manage its extensive private business interests. Metricon said it had a positive and healthy relationship with its lender, CBA. It's business as usual, Metricon said. Other builders, they were watching nervously, fully aware Metricon's collapse would damage all of them. It would be very, very bad, said one home builder. Clearly, any builder failing in the market is not good for confidence. One Metricon customer at Sydney's Lower North Shore said they've received zero communication from the company this week. Just hope they finish, the customer said. Assurances about the viability of Metricon don't change the fact that home builders are trapped between inflationary forces and fixed-price contracts. Volume home builders have always operated on historically skinny margins, but the broad consensus of those inside the sector, and importantly the insolvency specialists trying to nurse struggling construction companies through this current crisis, is that the eternal juggling act between growth and profitability has become much trickier over the last 3 years of the pandemic. The federal government's HomeBuilder grant was designed to stimulate demand during the pandemic, and it did its job well, perhaps too well. As at mid-February, the scheme had received applications for 113,113 grants for new home builds and 24,642 grants for renovators. Volume home builders leapt at the chance to sign up new customers, typically on the fixed-price contracts that are standard throughout the industry, but the viability of these already marginally profitable deals have come under severe pressure amid surging costs for construction materials caused by pandemic-related supply chain disruptions and rapidly rising labour costs caused by labour shortages that have pushed new home build costs up by at least 20%. In fact, one insolvency professional who now finds themselves in control of 2 construction sites in Sydney says there is a third pressure that is less understood, and that's time. In order to make fixed-price contracts work, most builders assume their jobs will run to time and typically leave little room for delays. These guys always believe their timetables will be almost perfect, the insolvency expert said, with more than a hint of bewilderment in his voice. What the pandemic has brought, of course, is abnormal delays. The Insolvency experts said the delays caused by the New South Wales government's snap lockdown of building sites last July are still being felt. And nationally, COVID-19 cases and close contact rules have caused ongoing problems with labour availability, while material shortages have been another source of delays. In construction, time is money. For example, the longer a piece of kit has to remain on site, be it a generator, a crane, a portable toilet, or safety fencing, the more it costs. An extra week might be manageable, but over months the hit to profitability becomes substantial. And with fixed price contracts standard, builders have relatively few options to pass through rising costs. This basic story, unstoppable inflationary pressures meeting immovable fixed price contracts, has been at the heart of several recent construction collapses, including ProBuild, Converdev and Privium. But there could be a new pressure on volume home builders in the form of rising interest rates. Again, this is about time. Developers say they have already seen a slowdown in inquiry levels and purchases since the Reserve Bank of Australia raised interest rates at the start of this month. And while demand hasn't necessarily fallen away, deals will likely take longer to complete, which in turn means customer deposits, which are often used to fund working capital, come in more slowly. So there's more grit in the wheels, one source said, and it couldn't come at a worst possible time. So if you are considering going to get a builder to build your property, be cautious and careful. Make sure you understand the basis on which the contract is actually being constructed, and ask yourself the question, who is at risk if it takes longer, if interest rates go up, if materials cannot be sourced as planned, or indeed if labour cannot be sourced. And there's one other point to ask, and that is, how secure is your deposit? Do you understand that it's held as a beneficial owner, or is it just sucked up into the working capital of the companies? And as always in these situations, it's about the buyer being aware, very aware of the risks, because certainly my evidence is that we're going to see more building constructions companies going under ahead as the quadruple whammy of higher interest rates, the hangover from COVID, the supply chain disruptions, and the lack of available workers with skills to boot all come home at precisely the same time. And of course, that was all triggered by the government programs, including HomeBuilder. So this was a series of events that was constructed, well, to help the industry, but actually it's looking as though it's breaking the industry. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.